Hello, today we will be learning about standard form. Go ahead and add standard form to your table of contents. You'll see I'm at 77 to 78. Remember, it's okay if you are on a different page number. We're still in Unit 4, Functions and Linear Equations. Our objective today is to be able to identify linear equations in standard form and graph equations that are in standard form. Your essential question is, what is standard form and how do I graph equations in standard form? Okay, standard form is essentially the same thing as slope-intercept form, just written in a different way. So our formula is ax plus by equals c, where a, b, and c are just integers. Okay, these are interchangeable, so we can go back and forth between standard form and slope-intercept form. Make sure you have the formula written down. Before we begin, we're going to just utilize standard form for a minute. So determine which ordered pair lies on the graph of 7x minus y equals 10. So we can see that this is in standard form because y is not by itself. So if we get problems like this, we just take the ordered pair and plug it in for x and y. So remember, 2 is x, 4 is y. So I would essentially have 7 times 2 minus 4. And I want to know if it equals 10. This is just like checking our work when we solve equations. So 7 times 2 is 14. 14 minus 4, is that 10? Well, yes it is. So A lies on the graph. Let's check B just to see. Maybe they both will. So again, we would have 7 times 2. This time it's minus a negative 4 equals 10. So this time we would have 14 minus a negative 4. Remember, that's keep, change, change. So this would actually end up being 18. So this one does not. So A lies on the graph. Okay, there are 2 steps to changing form from standard form to slope-intercept form. Step 1, we want to add the opposite of the x term to both sides. So think of whenever we're solving an equation, except now we're just solving for y, we're not solving for a specific number. And then we divide by the coefficient that is in front of y on both sides to get rid of that coefficient, because our goal is to get y by itself. So make sure you write these steps down. So feel free to pause the video to get them written down. Let's practice. So our goal is to always rewrite the equation in slope-intercept form. So slope-intercept form means y equals mx plus b. So what that means is I need to get y completely by itself. So you can use your Great Wall of Algebra to do that. So the first thing was to move x by using its opposite. So right now it's a positive 2x, so I'm going to subtract it on both sides. These will cancel. I'm left with y. And I always like to write it where my slope and x are first. Okay, so you can see all I did is I rewrite it so y is by itself. Notice that these are not like terms, so we don't turn this into 1x. You don't combine them. You just simply write them side by side, just like the actual equation. Okay, so now we want to graph that. So our equation was y equals negative 2x plus 3. Okay, and just like whenever we're graphing, we want to pick out our slope, which is negative 2, and then we turn it into a fraction, and our y-intercept is 3. So this is a good review for graphing. I need to graph that y-intercept first, so at a positive 3, and then I'm going to move down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1. I'm going to do that all the way across the graph. Okay, and then we can go in the exact opposite direction, which would be up 2 and to the left. And then we're going to use our straight edge. And remember, we want arrows on both sides. So this line represents y equals negative 2x plus 3. Okay, so let's try another one. I always like to write the slope-intercept form so I can see it, so I know what it needs to look like when I'm done. I need to start by moving the coefficient in x. I'm also going to go ahead and write a 1 in front of y, so I know that that's a coefficient of 1. So I'm going to begin by subtracting 5x to both sides. 5 minus 5 is 0, so I'm left with a negative 1y equals, and remember these are not like terms, so I'm not going to put them together. I prefer to write the slope and x value first. And then it's a minus 2. Now this one, I'm going to divide by a negative 1. So I have to get rid of that negative 1. And when we do this, we need to make sure we do it to every term. So I'm left with y, it's by itself. Negative 5 divided by negative 1 becomes a positive 5x. Negative 2 divided by a negative 1 becomes a positive 2. So all that did was change our signs. I want you to notice something. So if I were to write this formula for slope-intercept form, and if I were to rewrite it using the letters here, meaning I'm going to put y by itself. So when I rewrite this, I'm going to end up with y equals negative ax divided by b plus c divided by b. So the pattern here is we're essentially just having the negative a on the other side divided by whatever b is. Okay, so that's another way to use the formula and to see if you can set that up. So I would go ahead and write this down so you can see. So we could even take it a step further and say that m, would equal negative a over b, and we could say that b would equal c over b. Okay, that's how they relate. So if I looked at this original one, a would have been 5, b would have been negative 1, and c would have been negative 2. So if I'm looking here and I'm using the formula, negative a, so negative 5 divided by b, gives me a positive 5. Negative 2 divided by negative 1 gives me that positive 2. So that's how we get those numbers. So now we need to graph that. So we need to graph y equals 5x plus 2. So I need my slope, which is 5. We turn that into a fraction. And my b is 2. We got to start by graphing that y-intercept, so that positive 2. And I'm going up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Went a little too far. And over 1. Okay, I can't go up anymore, but I can go down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over 1. 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1. And then use the ruler. And draw your arrows. So there's our graph. Okay, let's look at another example. So again, I'm going to go ahead and rewrite that formula so you can see it a little different this time. So we would say y equals negative a over b x plus c over b. So this might be a way for you to recognize it a little easier. So what we would do is we would label the numbers. So we have A, B, and C. And then I would just rewrite it so it's in that formula. So y equals negative 3 over b x plus 9 over 3. Oh, I wrote a b, but that should have been 3. Okay, so you can see how we change that around. And this is something, if you prefer it this way, you just need to make sure you write this down and start to memorize it. So then we would just reduce those fractions. So negative 3 divided by 3 is a negative 1. And then 9 divided by 3 is 3. So we can see that this equation changed to negative 1x plus 3. Okay, if we followed our ability to just switch it around, I would have then had 3y equals negative 3x plus 9, because I'm subtracting that 3x over. And then I divide by this 3 here, and I've got to do it to everything. So I'm left with y equals negative x, or negative 1x, plus 3. And you'll see that that's the same answer. So either way would work. So now let's graph y equals negative 1x plus 3. I'm writing negative x because that's how it's going to appear. So our slope is negative 1, and we turn it into a fraction over 1. Our y-intercept is 3. So I'm going to start by graphing 3 first. This is a negative, so I'm going to be going down and to the right. And so over 1 and 1. Okay, and then we could go in the other direction. up 1 over 1. Remember, whenever you have a negative slope, make sure your line is going down as you go to the right. And if it's positive, make sure it's going up. So then we would use the ruler and draw a nice straight line across. Remember to add your arrows. Okay, when we get something like this, all you do is you divide by the coefficient in front of y. So this one should actually be the easiest. So we end up with y equals 3. And then we need to graph that. Remember, this is one of those special cases where there's a 0 slope. So that means we go to where y is 3, and it's a horizontal line across there. Okay, let's try a few more challenging ones. I'm going to use the formula and I'm going to show you without it. Okay, so this first one, we need to subtract 2x on both sides. So I end up with y equals negative 2x plus 5. Okay, I don't need to do anything else because there's no coefficient. My slope is negative 2. Turn that into a fraction over 1. My y-intercept is 5. So I'm going to start by graphing 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to be going down 2 over 1. Okay, and then use my ruler to draw a line and add my arrows. Over here, I'm going to use that formula. So the formula would be y equals negative a over b x plus c over b. So the way to use the formula is we've got to label that. So 3 is a, negative 5 is b. The thing about using the formula is you've got to pay close attention to the negative signs. So to rewrite this, we would get y equals negative 3 over negative 5 plus 10 over negative 5. And then we need to reduce the fractions if we can. 3 divided by 5 I cannot reduce, but it does turn into a positive. So it's going to become 3 over 5x. And then 10 divided by negative 5 is negative 2. So my slope here is 3/5, and my y-intercept is negative 2. So I'm going to start by graphing negative 2, and then I'm going to go up 3, 1, 2, 3 over 5. Okay, and then I'm going to go in the other direction. Remember, your point should make a nice straight line. Okay. Okay, this one I'm going to use the formula again. So remember, our formula is y equals negative a over b plus c over b. Okay, so negative 4 is a, my b is negative 1, and my c is 3. So when I rewrite this, I need the opposite of negative 4. So that's actually going to become a positive 4. So that's the first time we're seeing that. Over a negative 1. And then I'm going to have 3 over a negative 1. So let's reduce those fractions. So 4 divided by negative 1 is negative 4. 3 divided by negative 1 is negative 3. So my slope is negative 4. Turn that into a fraction over 1. My y-intercept is negative 3. So start by graphing that y-intercept at negative 3. Okay, so I need to go down 4. I can't. We know it would be about right here. But let's go in the other direction. 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1. 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1. Then I'm going to use my ruler. Okay, this last problem here is a little bit tricky. We're going to start by moving that constant. So they added an extra step for us. So this one I'm going to do just as I would as if I were just changing the equation around. So I need to add that 20. So I'm going to have x plus 4y equals 20. Now you could go ahead and use the formula because you can see clearly you have your a, b, and c. But I'm going to go ahead and keep solving it this way. So I'm going to get 4y equals negative x plus 20. And then I need to divide everything by 4. So my equation becomes y equals negative x over 4 plus 5. So now we need my slope. So my slope is negative 1/4 because in front of that x is a 1. My y-intercept is 5. So I'm going to start by graphing 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to go down 1, 3 over 4. I can't go any further that way, so I'm going to go up 1 and to the left 4. All right, so at this time, hopefully you're doing well with this. So I want you to go ahead and pause the video and try these two problems. Okay, hopefully you've paused the video, so let's see how you did with it. Okay, notice in these ones I've also added the table, because if you're struggling with the graphing of just the y-intercept and the slope, you are more than welcome to take numbers, plug them in to find their points and do it that way if that works for you. So hopefully your graphs look like this. Now, there is one more way we can graph standard form by using intercepts. So intercepts are just where they cross the x or the y axis. So the x-intercept is when the graph crosses the x-axis. Okay, it's always going to be in the form of an x value and then 0. The y-intercept, we should already know, is when the graph crosses the y-axis. And this time, it would always be 0 and then a y value. So if I'm looking at this graph over here, the the x-intercept would be right here. So that's at 3, 0. Meanwhile, the y-intercept would be here, which is at 0, 2. Okay, so that's what the intercepts are. So let's see how we can use them to graph. Now, our equation might be a little bit difficult to see. 3x minus 6y equals 12. You can always switch it around. Always. That's always going to work. The intercepts will not always work. The only way it'll work is if our numbers A and B divide evenly into C. That's the only time it works. So what we do is we basically split it up. So 3x equals 12 and negative 6y equals 12. So it's going to give me my x-intercept by dividing by 3. So x is 4. So that means that my x-intercept is going to cross the graph at 4. So we can put a point there. Here I'm going to divide by a negative 6. So I get negative 2. So that means my y-intercept is negative 2. And then we just take our ruler and draw a straight line across. So that's how we would graph standard form using intercepts. So let's look at another example. So again, we have to make sure our A and our B will go into C evenly, which it does. 4 will divide into 8 and 1 will divide into 8. So we separate it. So 4x equals 8 and y equals 8. So I'm going to divide by 4. So x is 2. So that means my x-intercept is 2. And then my y-intercept would just be 8 because I don't need to divide anything there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So then we would take our ruler and draw a straight line across. Okay, this would just be the quicker way to graph. Again, it doesn't always work. The way that does always work is switching it into slope-intercept form. If the directions tell you you have to switch it into slope-intercept form, then you need to do that. Okay, so what I would like for you to do at this time is look to see if any of these, A, B, or C, can be changed into X and Y intercepts. Hopefully you've taken a minute and looked at this to see. So if I'm looking at A, can 9 and 3 divide into 15 evenly? No. So that means this would have to be rewritten in the form of y equals mx plus b. Can 5 and 10 go into 20 evenly? Yes, so this one we can use the x and y intercept method. So 5x would equal 20, negative 10y would equal 20. And we would just divide. So my x-intercept would be 4. Remember, this really means 4, 0. And divide by a negative 10. So this would be a negative 2. So this would be 0, negative 2. Then we'd look here. The last one. Can 2 and 1/3 divide evenly? No. So this would have to be rewritten in the form of y equals mx plus b. I encourage you to try to rewrite those. Hopefully at this time you understand standard form. You are ready to move on to your next assignment.